Hi, everyone. Welcome back to Insecurity We Trust. I'm your host for today, Allie. That's at Ending with Allie on everything, including Minecraft. So be sure to follow me on Twitter. And today we have a really awesome, super special guest who's been running in the security circles with me a little bit. We have Jake.
Hey everybody, it's awesome to be on. Allie, thank you for having me on. You can find me over on Twitter at finding your password. I'm sure we'll plug that in the description or something of the podcast somewhere, so that's easily accessible. But myself, I am a security consultant. I've been doing that for the past 6 months or so here. And I also have been working on creating a lot of offensive security style content over on YouTube for the past like 7, 8 months. And I've been kicking off with that. So that's just a little bit of a brief background on myself.
Yeah, that's perfect. I was going to ask you to say that anyways. So I'm going to hit you with a really hard question first.
Oh boy.
So I know that YouTube has been putting a gag order on hacker and security content. How has that affected your content creation and how do you work around those loopholes or that gag?
Yeah. So I didn't actually run into it until I got my channel monetized. And I know some people have had videos just straight up like removed or like copyright striked for some reason because of the content. I never ran into it until my channel was monetized, and it actually kind of came in a wave. So when you go through this like process, I don't know how familiar you are with the like whole monetization process on YouTube or
So
not.
for everyone, I'm quite familiar, but a lot of
Okay.
our listeners are not. So let's assume they're not.
Okay, yeah. So it's basically when you're uploading a video on YouTube, there is a couple of questions that you have to answer about the ad suitability and if the content of your video that you're uploading is suitable for the ad providers that are going up online. And you have to basically say, yes, like, all the contents of my video are okay for uploading, and any ad can essentially air on this video. And that's a little bit of an automated process to begin with. But for whatever reason, I actually don't know. So, Allie, if you know, I would love to know here too. But I know that initial screening is moderately automated. There's not a lot of manual review. And I had a wave of videos actually that I had uploaded, and I want to say they were uploaded in like January. And mind you, they were just walkthroughs of hack the box content. So, just a hack the box machine, me explaining like the technology stack behind like the attack path on it, that whole thing. And they just straight up removed all of the monetization from it was about 5 videos. And then I had a handful of others afterwards, so I appealed that. You can click on a little button that says like appeal monetization or something along those lines, and they'll do a manual review. And I had a couple of them that they then moved back to like limited ad space, so they'll run some on there, but it's not quite the same amount of revenue that you can generate.
Yeah, for those who are listening, there's like 3 stages of monetization on YouTube. Like if you were to like I in my mind they're always color coded. It's green, yellow, and like gray. Green means you're fully allowed to monetize that. Yellow means like you're not getting full monetization, and they also limit your visibility and who can see your video. Excuse me, they don't limit who can see your video, but they limit its exposure on search engines and the ability to be placed in like recommended boxes. It basically stifles the video supremely, and then gray is just not monetized, and that just gets stifled also.
Yeah, and that's essentially what had happened to a handful of the videos. And my assumption is because of the content of the video. And it's pretty wild to see, assuming that the people that are listening don't or aren't familiar with that creator platform, like the YouTube studio that you have as a content creator, you can see the analytics of your video, and even the ones that are restricted to that limited or yellow phase, that kind of middle tier, it you can see the analytics of the video, and it's trending upwards for the majority of its lifetime, and it's generating like whatever the amount of revenue that it really should be as it's trending in that direction. And the date that corresponds with the date that they struck it down a tier, it pretty much just flatlines
Mhm.
in terms of
Yeah.
watch hours and everything. They have a lot more control over what you can do, and the revenue that you're able to generate and the reach that you're able to get and the new audience that you're able to get to. They pretty much can shut it down completely, and it kind of feels like in its current state, it feels like they can shut it down with like little to no explanation, um, which is, in my eyes, is a little bit sad, as YouTube is such a giant part of the internet, as a Google subsidiary. You're talking about some of the most talented security engineers and security oriented companies. um, for them to want to kind of shut down that free, um, infosec style content, that especially for people that are looking to get into that space, it's a little disheartening.
Yeah.
um, that's kind of my position where I sit on it right now.
I mean, I'm gonna flip your script here and say, actually, a lot of the engineers who work at Google aren't actually or work at YouTube aren't actually passionate about YouTube. And this is a spicy opinion that I've held for many years that I've been wanting to write about. But engineers who work at YouTube don't care about YouTube. I've met engineers who work at YouTube that don't use YouTube because to them, they work at Google.
Right,
They
right,
don't want to work at YouTube. They're not passionate about YouTube. So when you have issues like demonetization, I don't know if you ever got into the it'd be very interesting for you to look up. It might be. I know that there's a lot of different YouTubers and content creators who focus around cybersecurity content, but there was a lawsuit that happened a few years ago. I don't remember the endpoint or if it was a lawsuit specifically about the demonetization of LGBT and queer and trans and like alternative lifestyle content because it wasn't even the creators weren't doing things wrong. They were like just answering questions or just creating educational content, but they were immediately getting struck down because they were finding out lists of words. I believe oh my god, this is gonna be this is gonna kill me. I think it's like Mad City YouTube demonetization words. I'm gonna look this up really fast. Nerd City, YouTube's biggest slide, and it's a list of YouTube's demonetized words that they automatically demonetize if you like say it in your channel, you say it in the video, or if you say it in the um description, like
right.
they'll just automatically demonetize it. And a lot of it was words revolving around the LGBTQ community.
Hmm.
And so like I know that a bunch of them were trying to get together to take a stand, and I didn't follow the story fully, but I feel like it's definitely something along the lines. And I know that there's also another YouTube creator right now, real sexy cyborg Naomi Wu. She lives in China, and she's like, "Yeah, y'all keep demonetizing my body for no reason because she's creating tech content."
Hmm.
But so there, it's been a like consistently a big issue on YouTube, and I again, I know I can continue talking about YouTube all I want, but my question to you is: have you ever considered putting your content on other websites that are spicy websites that are free to access?
Yeah, so that I've been talking to a handful of people about this actually, and there are a handful of videos that I have gotten completely demonetized at this point, unfortunately. That I've been looking into moving some of them elsewhere. Just because it takes a long time to put some of these videos together. Like it's like weeks of after work video editing for like an
Yeah.
hour or two, and I'm kind of the person where I would much rather watch a YouTube video that looks like it was very well put together. Like it looks like the person took the time to edit it together, and it's not just, like I hit record and then cut out the times where I had like a 3 minute break in between doing something, and then slapped it together. And now I'm trying to make money off of it.
You want
Uh,
good storytelling.
Right, right. I want good storytelling, and that's where I felt like, you know, the content that I had been uploading was a little bit different. Not to say that there was people weren't putting time into it, because there's definitely a ton of videos out there where people are putting, there's obviously a concerted effort towards it. The one thing that I had seen that I wanted was, specifically with like hack the box content, where you can there's just such a high skill ceiling, I want to say, with some of them, where there's a lot of prerequisite knowledge that's assumed for some of the very easy content on there. And I felt like I wanted to start making videos that are like, hey, you know what, like this is very easy, but like there's a lot of like prerequisite knowledge that you would need to actually understand what's happening here. So that's kind of like where I wanted to. And sorry, that was a total squirrel, but um, like having those videos that take all that time to put together is, it just, it's really sad when you spend that much time and that much effort on a video, and you're really proud of it, and you feel like it's going to do well, and that people can learn from it, it being like free content for people. And then YouTube is just like, no, not only are we going to like cut your chance to monetize from this video, we're also like cutting it from people essentially being able to look it up on our platform. Like they already have to be subscribed to you and then go and find it
Yeah.
specifically, which, I'm sure you get it too, as have being familiar with that. Like the amount of views that you get from your actual subscriber base is very, very, very small. It's
Yeah, if
in more
you
cases, it's like less than 25%.
Yeah, for people that are watching, I don't know if anyone else has seen those videos where like YouTubers will literally stop and be like, "Stop! Look at this graph," and it's a graph of like view versus subscribe versus unsubscribe, because YouTube no longer really respects the subscription box. They basically deprioritize subscription, because I remember years ago talking to YouTube engineers and like, "So we're thinking about removing the subscription box," and I was like, "No, don't do it." But, like, it's very clear that they've deprioritized subscription, and they expect recommendations to uphold, and drive views to content. So, removing the visibility into a video and stifling it in search results and in recommendations is stifling creators.
Yeah, yeah, it really is. It's hard to convey the impact that it has, but it quite
Is it
literally
hard?
kills.
You literally you can literally show graphs of being like, "Look at this day, and look at it after, look at before and after."
Yeah, yeah. I mean, that's true. It is. It literally, it kills videos.
It kills
It
videos.
takes all the time that you put into it and makes it available for, I would say, close to 1% of the people that view or look at your channel on a regular basis. It would make it difficult for somebody who is subscribed to you and does look at the content that you upload to actually find the video, uh, if they wanted to search for it. It's just, it's tough.
Yeah. Rolling back to, something that you talked about before, prerequisite knowledge and hack the box. So I've been doing a lot of try hack me, and I know that hack the box is a lot more formal. Have you spent a lot of time in try hack me?
Yeah, I think both are fantastic, actually. Hack the box, especially for somebody that wants to get started in something that would be more like red team, um, is kind of focused on a subset of pen testing that I would say isn't even necessarily the most beginner friendly, where Hack the Box kind of simulates more of like a network pen test. One thing that I've found, and this has just kind of been my path and what's worked for me, is that looking at web app pen testing actually is probably the best like entry level gateway to getting into pen testing, period. Because even
Interesting.
for network penetration tests, cloud penetration tests, external penetration tests, those all in some way, shape, or form, I would be very thoroughly surprised if you don't come across the web server in some way. And that even kind of translates over into popular uh, pen testing certs like the OSCP, where the OSCP is very gauged towards being a network pen test. You have things like Active Directory environments and buffer overflows, like things that are very network pen test related. There is like an entire machine that's based on a web server. So it's kind of like, in my opinion, it's like that foundational building block that's not really talked about. And I feel like a lot of people try to start in the wrong spot, but it's not as popular. Like the content doesn't do as well with web app pen testing stuff because some people just think it's too complex, or it's a niche of pen testing. But realistically, understanding how the internet passes data to and from machines just over HTTP and things like that, it's kind of like the very basic baseline for what you'd come across on like a pen test or like a red team kind of engagement.
So when you create your content, you mentioned this earlier, you went to school for information secure or information systems and with a concentration in cybersecurity. Like you've learned a lot of this already. So how do you take your formal educational experience and tie it into your educational content that you make?
Yeah, yeah, and I like to point out, especially like for I get a lot of people that ask me too that are like, um, I didn't go to college for computer science. Like, how do I get up to speed um, with where like people like you are at, or anybody who graduates with like a computer science degree? And I'm like, you don't need it. Like I used more of my computer science degree um, in doing like scripting. And don't get me wrong, it's very helpful. It gives you like a good background, but I've learned more about the concepts that I learned in university from doing self study and learning from other people that are in this field than I ever even remotely scratched the surface um, with in university and in a computer science degree, and even in a degree that specialized in cybersecurity. You know, like universities are highly um, academic and theoretical for the most part, and you don't actually get to see like what something is and how it's exploited, or what context it fits into in the real world until you get a real world example or somebody that can explain to you what it looks like in the real world. It's
Yes.
one thing for a teacher to sit in front of a classroom and be like, oh yeah, if you just put script tags in this input field and then you hit send, and oh, look at there's an alert box on the web page. You're like, great. I have no idea what that means though. So to be able to see, um, for example, like a cross-site scripting payload, that like that's what makes phishing dangerous in a lot of cases. You can get phished to very legitimate websites. Being able to associate things like that is, in my opinion, what actually makes things stick. And I to answer your question, that's kind of how I've tried to incorporate that. Is I feel like I learned all of the wrong ways to teach what I studied in university, and now I try to approach it in a different way. Although, like it did provide me with a good like foundational level. I worked out my initial like struggles with the field in university, everything that
For a pretty
people go
penny,
through.
you can learn the basics.
Pretty much.
Or you could just learn it for free online.
That is
I'm striking a
also
chord
very
here.
true.
I am hitting somewhere. I'm hitting hard. Um, so then what was your aha moment when you realized that like what hacked the box room were you working on where you're just like, oh, like this is different?
Yeah, so I actually remember I was in like a secure like web design class or something like that, and the teacher was just like not really explaining things very well, and I was like, I'm gonna have to end up learning half of this off Google anyways. So I was sitting in like the lecture hall. I'm like plugging away at Hack the Box on my computer while I should have been taking notes. And it was actually, I believe the website's called like Tomcat. I think it's literally just called Tomcat, but it's like it's just a Tomcat server. And I saw that like you can just use like some of these web servers just leave their default credentials enabled, and you would be extremely surprised how common that
You'd be
is.
none the wiser. Yeah.
And I just remember I was like, okay, well, like I guess I'm just gonna try like I think I just googled Tomcat, and it was like, oh yeah, here's some like default credentials, and I was like, oh wait, that's interesting, and I like put them in, it worked, and then I was like, oh, and you can upload files now in like the web like management interface. You upload like a reverse shell, and then boom, you had it. And I was like, wait, that's pretty cool. Like that's pretty crazy that people do that. So that was honestly, I think that was like one of the first ones that I got, and then I just got like hooked on it after that. I was like, okay, this is super cool. Like I want to do this for a living. This is really awesome. But I did end up actually like for a year after I graduated. I actually worked on the blue team side before I went red team side, and yeah, I mean, I will say like from sitting on both sides of the fence, people do some pretty questionable things in terms of their security.
Oh yeah. Oh my god, yeah. Duh. Everyone's just trying to make it by, and security teams are um so underpaid and understaffed that they kind of have to. But
Yeah.
that's not the story, and that's I will consistently say pay your security teams more. If you are someone in charge of a security team, please pay your security teams more. Um,
Yes. Echoed.
but so you weren't originally going to go into pen testing. What were you originally going to go into then?
So I wanted to go into pen testing. I just like when I first came out of college, I just was so inexperienced with like finding different roles and stuff, that I had really only ever come across like blue team roles. And then I just kind of fell under the assumption, this is before I even had like a Twitter to really like feel out the community. Um, I just assumed that you couldn't really do pen testing as a an initial gig or with very like little experience. I thought it was like more like mid to senior level thing, um, and I kind of just like gave up on it for a little bit of time. I was like, well, like maybe I just need a couple of years of experience before I can even try to go after something like that. So I did work on the blue side for about a year before I decided to switch over.
So if you were back in your shoes when you were originally looking for jobs because you knew you wanted to get into pen testing, what advice would you give yourself back then originally applying for jobs?
Yeah, I mean, part of it is a little bit like being honest with yourself too. Like, um, to work on the red side, and it's equally as true to work on the blue side, but um, working I've realized this more as I've actually done things, is you have to be honest with yourself about what you know, because when you're working in an environment and you come across something, you can't just be like, oh yeah, like that's cross-site scripting, I know what that is. It's like, okay, like I see that like that's exhibiting behaviors that might lead to cross-site scripting. Now let's figure out like what's being filtered. If there is like filtering, like let's figure out how to get around it. Like there's a lot of things that require being chained together. So I think being honest with yourself of like where you're at and where like you need to personally improve is um, kind of step one. But then step two is, I would say it's like networking, like you said, or before we even started recording was, Twitter is crazy for networking. Like I found my current position on Twitter. Reaching out to people that is so much better than ever having to, uh, sorry, my dog is
Show the
chewing.
dog. Show the
All right,
dog.
here. I gotta get the dog up now. He was just chewing on my laptop cord, so it yanked everything down here. Let's get the dog up here.
Oh my God,
Okay.
you have a Shiba Inu.
I do.
Oh, oh my God, y'all can't see this dog right now, but this dog is just like, I know that they're very stubborn dogs. So is that why chewing on the cord? Because they're like, this is how I'm going to get your attention?
Oh yeah, yep. That's exactly what he was doing. He woke up from his nap, and now he
Determined.
was determined to get my attention, but he'll be fine.
Yeah.
Sorry for that interruption. I think I was talking about networking, right?
Yeah.
Twitter.
Networking on
Twitter.
Twitter.
Sorry. Um, yeah, no, Twitter is fantastic, especially with the infosec community. There's just so many people that are willing to help out there. But even if like, infosec isn't your thing, or maybe it's development, maybe it's software engineering, it translates anywhere. Like whether it's LinkedIn, Twitter, whether you're going to like in-person meetups or conventions, however you're getting your name out there and interacting with people. That's where I found the most meaningful connections, because I applied to, when you're going online and just submitting blind applications to all these companies, sure, you're going to go through that weed out process of a bunch of phone calls, but you don't actually get to like feel out that company's culture. Like I would have never known, like, especially with, having met Parker online, and that's where I'm at now. Um, I feel like where I'm at now is so much better of a culture fit. The people that I work with on a daily basis are so much more like aligned with like how I think, and it just gels so much better. Like it's not even really about, to some degree, like somebody you have an in there. I've just found I'm like so much happier working with people that I know think like I think and are passionate about what they do, and want to hear what I have to think. And I'm not just somebody they found off the internet somewhere kind of thing.
Yeah. Yeah. So uh beyond that, if you had any advice, like I love actionable advice and everyone hears me say this every time. If you had any actionable advice for our listeners right now, what actionable advice would you give them?
In like some specific field, or just generic
Generic.
advice? Generic advice. I'm going to go back to what I originally said, and maybe this was like a me thing, but being able to continuously learn, and being honest with yourself about your progress is very, very important. Whether you're going after a certification or you want to go after a job, there's no point in trying to put yourself further than you already are. I know, like, especially with like social media nowadays, that like hustle culture kind of like
Yeah.
hyper grindy style of
The grind
content.
never sleeps.
Right, right. It's like so popular now, and I fell victim to it myself. Like you want to feel like you're at where everybody else is at, or there's these anomalies of people that are just really good at like knocking out a bunch of certifications like all in a row, and you want to have like X, Y, and Z certification. It's not that important. Like it's your career isn't a race. I guess is where I'm getting with this because I feel like I learned that a little bit of like the hard way myself.
Mhm.
Understanding that and being able to admit when you don't know something or you're not where you want to be is just as important as knowing where you want to get to be or where you want to be eventually. Because it gives you the opportunity to reflect on yourself and realize what you need to do to get where you want to be. If you just pretend like you know something, it's ultimately going to like catch up with you. And you're not going to get to where you want to go because you're lying to yourself. So that would be one of the biggest things, I guess, would be like some of my most generic advice I could give.
Yeah. So kind of as we close out the conversation, is there anything that you like want to share with the world? Where do you want people to find you?
Yeah, so you can find me over on my YouTube channel. That is going to be youtube.com, then the C slash, and then it's finding your is UR, and then password is spelled like the Linux password file. So it's like PASSWD. So you can find me over on YouTube. There's lots of Hack the Box content over there. I'm also starting a series going over all of the different types of injection attacks in the OWASP top 10 category. So that's really exciting. And then I also am pretty active over on Twitter with the same exact handle as my YouTube channel.
So Jake, thank you so much for joining us on this conversation. I mean, I know it took us a little bit of time to get here, but I'm really glad that we got the chance to talk.
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely. Thank you for having me.
yeah, so for everyone listening, again, I'm Allie. I'm your host. That's ENDINGWITHALI on everything, including Minecraft. So be sure to go follow me on Twitter, and we'll see you on the next episode. Bye, everyone.
See you guys.